Good day, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all of you to join us with this UrbanShift webinar today on the 24th of November. We will be addressing the ClimateSmart Cities Assessment Framework, which is India's innovative subnational climate reporting initiative. My name is Marijke van Staden. I am the director of ICLE's Carbon Climate Center based in Bonn in Germany, and I will be your moderator today. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers for you who will be sharing perspectives on different aspects related to the Indian Smart Cities process. And I would like to welcome our distinguished speakers, as well as all of you, dear participants from across the globe. We hope you will have an interesting discussion today and learn a lot about something that is truly important in our daily work. This is one of several UrbanShift project webinar series, and we will share at the end a few more coming up with you for your attention as well. So today we'll be discussing really how Indian cities and their local governments are mainstreaming climate action in their urban development activities, while advancing, of course, with their smart cities technologies. And here you see our speaker lineup. We will have Kunal Kumar, the Joint Secretary and Mission Director of the Smart Cities Mission from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, MoHUA, joining us shortly. And also, I would also like to thank the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs from the Government of India to be our partner in this webinar, as well as the collaboration with C-Cube. Our first speaker will actually be Ms. Vaishani Nandan, the project head from the ClimateSmart Cities project from GSAT India. We're delighted to have you with us, madam. And last but not least, Dr. Sanjay Kote, our Chief Executive Officer from the Pune Smart City Development Corporation Limited, with Pune being one of the leading cities, and we would like to showcase that particular example. So moving to some practical updates. As you can see, you've been muted, so maybe just make sure that we do wish for an interactive webinar. So please make sure that you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And should you need interpretation, there's the interpretation global icon at the bottom where you can listen either in English, alternatively in Chinese or Indonesian Bahasa. We hope and we thank our interpreters also in advance for the hard work that they will be doing as well. Thank you so much. So let's go, I think, quickly to our agenda. So after our speakers will be speaking, we will have a Q&A session with all of you. So again, your Q&As would come in writing, please. So do make use throughout the course of the webinar by putting in your comments. And if I'm not mistaken, we will now launch very quickly an interactive poll. There we go. It's a pop-up box you see now. If you could please answer how many cities and how many states and regions have reported their climate actions in this year, in 2021. You have a couple of options: 616 cities and 105 states and regions. Alternatively, 812 cities or 131 states and regions, or the third alternative, more than 1,000 cities and 86 states and regions. Interested to hear what your perspectives there are. So this is reporting that has been done through the CDP, the Unified Reporting System, which is a global platform, which I will introduce to you shortly. Great, shall we close the poll and see what we've got? And I can also give you the right answer. And let's see if you were part of the people who guessed right. There we go. Okay, we've got 50% have chosen the correct answer. Congratulations to those of you. Over 1,000 cities and 86 states and regions. And it's wonderful to see the global reporting picking up. And indeed, this is reporting then on climate and energy action from 2021. And that reporting platform is not yet closed. So feel free to take a look as well and see if you can still report if you are interested in doing so. Without much ado, I would like to zoom in on our agenda. So we have roughly an hour to address very much interactively the ClimateSmart Cities Assessment Framework in India. And as you know, India is one of the target countries that is also tagged by the GEF to be part of the UrbanShift program. This is GEF funded, so the Global Environment Facility is supporting this, and UrbanShift particularly is being led by the UN Environment Programme, who is also our consortium lead, and then we are working in partnership in India, the World Resources Institute, C40 Cities, ICLEI, UNDP, the World Bank, and the Asian Development Bank. And our aim is very much to scale up sustainable urban development. If we can go to the next slide, please. Working, of course, around the globe in a huge number of countries. So you can see the color coding there. We have GEF 6 cities, GEF 7 cities. We're currently in the GEF 7 phase, which includes 9 countries in the light purple, with 23 primary cities, but we're also supporting cities from the previous GEF 6 funded program in UrbanShift in order to make sure that the capacity building offer and the support that we are providing through online training and hopefully meeting in person in the not too far future as well during our first UrbanShift forum, which will be held in Asia. Very briefly, I would like to touch on reporting. The CDP ICLEI Unified Reporting System is an important global reporting platform where voluntary reporting happens and is taking place by local governments, by regional governments. And the reason why we have set this up is to start tracking the impact of climate action, not only looking at the targets that have been set, but also looking at the assessments such as greenhouse gas emissions inventories, such as climate risk and vulnerability assessments, as well as local renewable energy assessments. And these assessments, to track these over the course of time, doing them quite regularly, reporting on them, while also reporting on the action planning and on the actual actions that are being implemented. And the interesting piece for the actions reporting is also for us to identify where you as a subnational government still need investment needs, where you have investment needs that are not covered, which will help us in turn put these forward to the banks, to the financing institutions to see if they can finance this. So a new element that will be part of the 2022 reporting system will be actually also based on the guidance of the task force on climate-related financial disclosure that is used in the private sector. So we're bringing very much pieces of the puzzle together to give a clear, coherent overview of where subnational governments are moving, where there are potential gaps, where the investment needs are, and helping to showcase good practice as well. Thank you very much. And if we go to the next slide, I believe we are ready to roll to show you just the wide range of topics on which one can report. So food and waste, buildings, transport, climate change adaptation actions, as well as energy and urban planning. And in UrbanShift, we touch on all these topics in one way or another. And we're also busy trying to understand what the needs and the gaps of the local governments are in the UrbanShift project. If we go to the next slide, please. So this one platform of CDP and ICLEI supports a huge range of initiatives. On the left, you see ICLEI's own initiatives, our Green Climate Cities program, which is open and free to any subnational government. The Transformative Actions program, which is ICLEI's project pipeline, where you can submit your projects. The Eco Mobility Alliance, as well as our 100% renewable cities and regions network. Then, however, we also use the same reporting system for the Global Covenant of Mayors and for the competition that WWF launches, the One Planet City Challenge. And last but not least, the 2 races that have been promoted by the climate champions, the Race to Resilience and the Race to Zero. So an important place where you can do your one-stop reporting in one place. Next slide, please. So without much ado, and as the clock is ticking, I would like to hand the floor over to Ms. Vaishal Nandan, who is the project head of the ClimateSmart Cities program of GIZ India. She has been instrumental in bringing the CSCAF into life with the support of the Ministry of Housing in India and other key national stakeholders. And from her, we will hear how the conceptualization and the development of the program, which is an important piece where maybe other national governments could also learn from, also hearing some of the challenges and the opportunities presented. So without much ado, Ms. Nandan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Marika. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon from India. I have for you a brief on what we did, during the, of course, the conceptual phase, but moving on then to the future now as it holds. Next, please. A little on GIZ and the project. So GIZ is a wholly government of Germany-owned technical cooperation, and it's part of the development cooperation with Government of India. And we are supporting the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs to anchor climate-friendly solutions in urban infrastructure projects and area-based development, initially through the Smart Cities mission. However, now we have really moved forward. At the ministry level, we supported with the ClimateSmart Cities Assessment Framework, and we are working in 3 cities and 3 states in India, and we have 3 implementing partners, and the project in question goes on till 2022. There are various, of course, parameters how we support the project implementation then on the ground. Next, please. Coming to the ClimateSmart Cities Assessment Framework and its conceptualization, we started in 2019 initial discussions regarding how we should take the subject of climate forward. And I must really give this to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and the ClimateSmart Cities mission, where they took the leadership and agreed to anchor climate aspects, not only initially for our 3 cities, and but they said that let's do it for all 100, because the Smart Cities mission is the experimental ground for the for Government of India per se, given the large number of urban local bodies that we have, more than 4,000 plus. So this is where we started, and what you see in the photograph was the first deliberation that took place with the MoHUA and the Ministry of Environment, Government of India, along with our implementing partners, National Institute of Urban Affairs. The process was, developed through various consultations, and in the 2019 February, we launched this first book that you can see on the left side, which was initially 30 indicators, and it was a very intensive process of deliberations that we did, and I must say each organization that was there from the 26 was equally enthusiastic about the whole system and was trying to put this in place. Next, please. So just a little brief on what the assessment framework is, the current system. We are in the second round. The results were declared, and the third round should be started very soon. It's divided across 5 sectors, though it's just for ease that they have been clubbed, and they're energy and green buildings, urban green planning, green cover and biodiversity, mobility and air quality, water resource management, which includes water, wastewater, stormwater management, and waste. Each city is then assessed on an overall performance, on their sectoral performance, and there's indicator-wise performance as well. Each indicator is also progressive in nature, and it also provides the direction that a city needs to take in order to move forward. So there's also a rating from a scale from 1 to 5, and suppose a city is 2, they know where to go and what needs to be done in order to reach a level 5. Next, please. So what we did, once this system was formed, there was an expert committee formed, and the sectoral experts and core experts were really brought on board. The post conceptualization, we did national and regional workshops in order to sensitize all the cities on what had to be done, what is the kind of reporting, and how that they could take forward. Various things that were also done was development of a microsite which was linked to the smart net of NIUA and the ministry, in order that various material was available, readily available. There was a help desk to support the cities whenever there was a question. There were advisory that were formulated, and they're constantly being formulated even now. Book on best practices, ClimateSmart Cities, a self-assessment tool where the city could see for themselves where they stand and didn't really need to wait for an assessment round. So, a lot of things went around the whole system in order to actually support. Next, please. Continuing also then with various webinars, blogs that NIU is leading, various trainings that have been developed. All the indicators now have trainings that are available. GSAT also supported 4 subjects and covering across 11 indicators. These e-modules can now be found on the National Urban Learning Platform, which is then available to the cities for reference, and anybody who wants to take part in these trainings needs to register, and that can be done. One very interesting thing also that happened parallelly was the revision of the National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, which is supported by which is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs commitment to the NDCs, and it's monitored very closely by the Ministry of Environment. And the assessment framework indicators have also found place in this document. And now not only the smart cities, but gradually up to 2025, all 500 cities would be monitored, and then the assumption is that this would be panned out for all cities in the country. Different kind of capacity building exercises, training of trainers of not only the regional institutes, but also national level institutes, so that they could take various trainings forward, was also something that we spearheaded. GSAT per se is supporting 17 cities in then doing their evaluations and taking various taking the cities, hand-holding the cities so that they can actually perform better on the ground. 3 cities, of course, are our intensive cities where we also have staff. And there were articles also written regarding advocacy, so that the cities could actually understand what is there and can take this up. You can also access them on the on various platforms of NIUA. Next, please. This was something that is, I would say, one of the key things that was constituted. So the assessment framework is, let's say, just one of the things. However, in order to get the cities really forward, we need a constant input into what the cities should do and how they should do it. It's more the how. And 2 things were initiated with GSAT support. One is the Climate Center for Cities at NIUA, which is going to be the help desk, or rather, which already is the help desk for the entire system, for anchoring these all the climate related aspects, not only within at the national level, but also to all the cities, and moving up to the 500 cities that I was talking about by 2025. And the various the other thing that has been, that you can see in the middle, is these climate alliance that has been set up. And this climate alliance is actually now there are more than 75 plus members with various institutes, bilateral agencies, multilateral agencies, who are coming together and then supporting the various cities on the ground. There are also training institutes and um, various actors. Their blogs and also the climate advisory and various kinds of other secretarial support that was done by GSAT, and of course also now the C-Cube is taking it forward. Next, please. Yeah, and I think I come to an end with this. So what next? There are 2 or 3 aspects that need to be really, looked at. One is institutionalizing this entire system so that it really can be taken forward with then the environmental cells in cities, or various kind of reporting that can actually contribute to the NDC reduction, NDC commitment, and the emission reduction globally, and also now considering the clarion call that has been given by our Prime Minister. It's really important to look at this now in a more holistic manner, looking also at the budget, where the city most of the time is already doing a lot of action, but they don't really know what is that action that they're doing, and just linking those to the climate aspects and the assessment framework, but also to the climate finance and the local budgeting, various capacity building exercises, and of course the knowledge sharing, which is one of the important aspects, and today I would say is also one of them. So with that, I would say thank you, and looking forward to questions from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that snapshot overview, Vaishali. And indeed, it's trying to condense something massive into a short presentation. You did it wonderfully well, and I'm sure there will be more questions popping up. I see the questions are coming in through the Q&A, so we'll field those afterwards at the end when our speakers have concluded their intervention. So look out for some of those questions. Thank you so much. I think the points you raise also around the need for a more holistic approach, and with such a huge undertaking and such a wonderful large partnership, it's certainly an effort that needs to be well coordinated. But from what I've seen, the work that's being done is fantastic, and is certainly a wonderful example for other countries also to look into and see if they can emulate this, especially since we know our NDCs collectively around the globe are not yet reaching the target we need to effectively tackle climate change. So thank you so much. And I am now delighted to introduce our next speaker. Mr. Kunal Kumar, a warm welcome to you to join us today in this very important webinar dealing with the role of smart cities in India. And your role as Joint Secretary and Mission Director, of course, for the Smart Cities mission from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs is critical. And we really look forward to your insights into how you see this evolving. And I think also your background, having worked also as a municipal commissioner in Pune Municipal Corporation, gives you the insights into what happens at the city level, but also now at the national level. And I think that dual role and vision and perspective is really important for us to hear your thoughts on where this is going. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much. Just a check on audio. Am I audible?
Everything's fine.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm delighted to be part of this very important discussion that you guys have organized around climate and in the intersection with cities. And I was just looking at the presentation that Vaishali made, and zooming out, when you look at the things that she talked about, it's been a couple of years or more of journey that she's tried to encapsulate in a few slides, and we've been working together very closely, and we've seen this pace of climate action in cities really expand and to a next level of discussion in the country over the last 2-3 years. There is still a long way to go, as the discussions in COP26 just recently just make you think about what are the just the size and the magnitude of the action that lies ahead of us. So I'll in my presentation, I'll just take you briefly through what we've been up to. Of course, the role of cities, the role of national governments, can easily be, just thought of about as being drivers and being people who set the agenda for policy. But I think a lot of more hands-on action is required in India, and that will come through the slides maybe, and we can then talk about them in maybe the question and answer sessions. So if you look at the number of people who live in India's urban areas, of course, these numbers have to be taken with a pinch of salt because definitional issues are there across the countries. There are many different definitions. If you look at India's definition, we are close to around 460 million people in urban areas today, which is probably going to rise to around 600 million people by 2030. If you look at the Mexican or the Chinese definition or the World Bank Agglomeration Index, we are already close to 60% urban as a country. And therefore, the space of urbanization is humongous. Over the next couple of decades, you will see the size of entire America move into India's cities. The population of the size of entire United States move into India's cities. Next slide, please. And if you see the three trends: urbanization, climate change, and increased use of energy, these are circularly linked together and are really the three most defining aspects of our current state of affairs as far as humanity goes. And if you look at the numbers that you see on India's urban population, and then you see the numbers on this slide, when you see that it's the seventh most affected country on global climate risk index, the kind of losses we expect because of climate change and the kind of risk prone our cities are to various vagaries of climate change. And on the other side, they are the culprits in many ways in how they take decisions about consumption of energy, transportation systems, water systems, waste management systems, how they manage air quality and stuff. And so while cities are at risk, cities are also the culprits who create a lot of this climate change, and therefore a lot of responsibility comes on the way we urbanize in the future. Having said that, we're going to face rapid urbanization. It all depends on the quality of this urbanization, the sustainability of this urbanization, which will impact not only outcomes in India, but also across the globe, because the numbers are very high. And with all projections over the next 2 decades, 90% of the urbanization is going to happen in Asia and Africa, predominantly in two countries, Nigeria and India, which is why these figures really are alarming. And in that background, when you look at what is happening in the country, well, there is a big impetus post-COVID on government investments into infrastructure. A lot of projects on urban transport, water systems, sewage systems, stormwater drainage systems, solid waste management systems, roads and bridges are happening. Yes, there is a lot of focus on energy and a lot of focus on renewable sources of energy, including solar. We are all aware of the targets that India has before it by 2030 on solar power. And so these infrastructure investments in cities are on one side of the story. Go to the next slide, please. And on the other, you understand that when a lot of investment is happening in infrastructure, how do you bring the climate lens, and how do you bring the climate and the sensitive climate sensitive development practices in the way our cities build infrastructure, and how they become more sustainable in their approach and are able to look at intergenerational equity in the use of natural resources, which is where we came about this idea of the ClimateSmart Cities Framework. And as Bashari said, it's just the assessment is just one part of it. But essentially, the framework is supposed to become the anchor umbrella under which this entire discussion about responsible urban development, climate-sensitive urban development, sustainable development, and optimization of the way we use natural resources, the minimization of the negative effects of climate change, and maximization of the benefits of urbanization. So all this discussion with cities, with states, with all ecosystem stakeholders is now happening under this umbrella of the ClimateSmart Cities Assessment Framework. And so we started with 2016, the conceptualization of the National Action for Plan for Climate, and then the Paris Climate Agreement was signed. Subsequently, the INDCs were notified, and then each of the ministries started working on their role within the INDCs. And then 2019, we came about this concept of this Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework, and the most important, the Climate Smart Cities Alliance, which essentially is an alliance of like-minded organizations, both global and national, working with India's cities and city leaders to champion the cause of cities, to champion the cause of climate sensitive development in cities. And so we've launched the assessment framework. Essentially, the assessment framework was a tactical entry point in creating a dialogue with cities and in creating a healthy competition spirit amongst all the cities in the country to ensure that everyone could compare themselves on like parameters across the board, whether what is the per capita energy consumption in X city versus Y city in the same cohort, let's say same population, same GDP, and what's the use of fossil fuels in one city versus the other, what is the level of urban transport percentage which is being driven through public transport or not motorized transport, and so on and so forth. So climate smart city assessment framework became that tactical point, but this kind of dialogue started to happen, and then subsequently it started to lead to action. And then the Climate Center for Cities was formed. The second version of the Climate Smart Cities assessment was done, and now, as we speak, we are almost on the verge of announcing the Climate Smart Cities Assessment 3, which will also account for some of the things that has been discussed recently in COP26, and as well as some of the learnings we have had over the last two cycles. Go next, please. And of course, I'll not dwell too much on this. Essentially, we've tried to institutionalize now. One of the things that we've understood is that we have to look beyond, individuals. We have to look beyond governments, and we have to look beyond missions and programs. We have to look at institutional ways of discussion, dialogue, and action in the field of climate. So a lot of states are now setting up their climate governance units. This is the national unit which we have formed with NIUA and the Climate Center for Cities and the organizational structure at the national level. And we're now working with cities in the sense to see which cities are progressively moving towards better climate governance. And the idea that we have is not to mandate a template X or template Y, but to expose other cities to the kind of practices that are emerging, and see that the best innovations get replicated, and sooner than later, each of the cities have actually a strong commitment to climate governance, and they are able to take maximum stakeholders on board in the city to be able to drive this agenda forward. This is not one city government's agenda. This is not a state government's agenda. This is an ecosystem agenda, which is where partnerships, collaborations, civil society, academia, industry, everyone matters, and therefore everyone has to be brought on board. So climate governance is something which requires extremely strong leadership, because it's one thing to do your job well, but it's very difficult to get everyone to come together and champion a cause which seems to be nobody's cause, because everybody is the classical prisoner's dilemma problem, and therefore that is the work that we are trying to do with CSCAF governance. And again, these are the 5 broad areas where our action in cities is being driven: urban planning, green cover and biodiversity, energy and green buildings, mobility and air quality, water management and waste management. And a big practice around these 5 areas of work has emerged. However, as I said in the beginning, it's just the volume of work in a country like India is so huge. There are 4,700 plus cities, and there are so many different sectors to work in, so many different states and different levels of evolution. Some states are as low as 10% urban, some states are as high as 60% urban. In between, there are many states with many kinds of flavors. So everyone to come on board and everybody to have the same, to be able to be engaged with this is the real uh, uh, effort that is required. And over the last 2 cycles, if you see cities which were rated 1 star in the first assessment were 66, that's come down to 31. You see that 2 stars has gone up from 25 to 64. This assessment is pretty rigorous. You see, even now there are no 5 stars. 1 4-star last year, 9 4-star this year, and there is a well-documented objective method of evaluation. Of course, all of us know that every index you talk about, whether it is quality of life index or climate smart cities index, is prone to some kind of errors, is prone to some kind of data mismatches and stuff. But all said and done, the best effort has been from the team to ensure that data is triangulated from multiple sources, it's validated and cross-checked with multiple documents, and therefore the true picture comes out. And as you see that progress is clearly visible, although there's a huge work which requires yet to be done, because ideally we would like every city to be 5-star, but that's going to take time. But the intent is clearly very strong. Go next. And you see, this is the emerging outcome, from nowhere, where cities were not really making these kinds of things, meet these kinds of efforts. Now this has started to happen. Cities making budgets for rejuvenation and conservation of water. Benchmarking across cities on electricity consumption per capita is started to happen. And cities are doing much better on collection of waste than before. Almost a 4 times jump over the last 5 years in processing of waste in the Indian cities, which is huge if you look at the volume. Then biodiversity management has been now institutionalized within cities. Almost 88, which is 88% of smart cities, have actually converted a lot of their streetlights into LED and or renewable energy operated like solar. A lot of these cities have banned single-use plastic use. National air quality standards. This is another very difficult area of work in developing cities. Only 19 cities today have achieved national air quality standards. A long way to go here. A lot of cities have started to now create low carbon mobility plans, and today the use of low carbon shared vehicles seem to be on the rise. Many cities are actually trying to work with federations and unions who work in this area and try to see how this mode of transportation, which is called the intermediate public transport, or the public transport, or the shared vehicles, can be made as green as possible, and water resource assessment and stuff. So these are things which have started to happen as an outcome of the climate smart cities work over the last 2 to 3 years. Next. And these are just a few examples. I'll just skip. So here, if you see the Climate Smart City Alliance, this one has so many different organizations who are now starting to work with us. And this umbrella is growing. The people from various parts of the world, organizations from various parts of the world, organizations in India from multiple different spheres are now working together with us. We understand that no single organization, no single city or state or any government can actually turn this story around. It is a story where everyone has to come together. It has to become a people's movement. And for that to happen, a lot of people will be required on ground, engaging with stakeholders and ecosystem partners to make it happen, which is where this Climate Smart Cities Alliance is very important for us. So here we are, and I would, on this note, actually invite other organizations who may be participating in this conference and who are still not part of our Climate Smart Cities Alliance, may please look forward to engaging with our Climate Center for Cities team, or the GIZ team, or the other teams that are working with us. Let us know if you want to be part of this journey. We would be very happy to have you on board. Go next, please. And I would now just want to bring the attention to the 5 main target areas that India has committed to at COP26. One, to bring its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatt. So this is a jump from the previous commitment of 450. Then by 2030, India will fulfill 50% of its energy requirement through renewable energy. This, I think, is a jump from 40% to 50%. India will cut down its net projected carbon emission by 1 billion tons from now till 2030. So this is again a huge ask on the city ecosystem to look at cutting down on the net carbon emission in the cities. Then by 2030, India will bring down carbon intensity of its economy by more than 45%. I think this is from 2005 levels. Now, this is again a huge task, especially in a growing economy, and we are projected to grow close to on an average of 8% for the next 3 years. If that is the case, then it's going to be a real challenge to actually look at technologies which make carbon intensity go down, as well as meet the ends for development as the country has set its targets for. And by 2070, India will achieve the target of net zero. So this one again was a big topic of debate, and whether India would. But now aggressively, in fact, our honorable Prime Minister has put this on the table, and it's now our responsibility as city leaders and city champions and smart cities and all the ecosystem partners who work with urban areas to actually make this possible. Because like without a very bold and big effort from cities, this is not going to be possible for India to meet. We are all committed to ensure that these 5 targets that our honorable Prime Minister has put forward at COP26 are achieved in time or before that, and therefore the role of cities is going to be paramount. So next slide, please. So I would probably stop here, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Once again, I would invite all of you to engage with us and work with us and take on the challenge of creating a cleaner, greener, and much more climate-friendly India in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. I think it's a wonderful presentation, and indeed, you explained it as a journey. It is a journey, and it basically just started. So there's so much potential for scaling up, of course. One question: would you be able to stay with us until the end, where we can also have more questions and answers, or do you need to leave? I know your schedule is really busy.
I'm on the call till about 3:30.
Okay. Then we hope that we could still ask you some questions and answers. Then I would be delighted to hand over to our next speaker from Pune. So Dr. Sanjay Kalter, we've already introduced you, so without much ado, I hand the floor to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be sharing the Pune city's experience in terms of ClimateSmart Cities Assessment Framework. Yeah, in the recently some policies and initiatives have been taken. Like the city administration of Pune Municipal Corporation has approved a proposal to hire 38 electric cars for day-to-day use of its officials for a period of coming 8 years. At the state level, again, Maharashtra government has approved its state electric vehicle policy, and the policy states that all the vehicles leased for the government officials will be electric vehicles starting from 1st of April 2022. So these two initiatives or decisions are very much positive steps towards climate action. Pune Smart City has implemented e-bus project in collaboration with Pune Municipal Transport Corporation and Pune Municipal Corporation. And 150 electric buses are plying in Pune city. And they have traveled more than 5 lakh kilometers so far. Almost the TCO2 percentage has been reduced from 7% to 4% by way of these buses, and mostly the routes which have been chosen for this were those with high TCO2 percent. So that advantage has been exploited through this venture. Then along with that, old batteries have been scrapped with a scrap recycle policy. Non-motorized transport is also being encouraged in Pune city since last 4 to 5 years, and dedicated cycle tracks and lanes have been developed. And by Pune Smart City also, we have so far already completed more than 30 kilometers of cycle tracks, and Pune city as a whole has more than 100 kilometers of cycle tracks ready by now. Retrofitting junctions for easier and safer movement of cycles and NMT modes are being put in place, and encouragement to non-polluting modes of transport is being given. Thereby, we intend to reduce the vehicular emissions, the pollution, and increase the safety on road by NMT modes. E-rickshaw project was implemented by Smart City in a pilot mode, and more than 400 e-rickshaws were deployed in the city, mainly with an intent to provide the low-cost last-mile connectivity. And it was a feeder, sort of feeder to the bus transport, and if that catches up in the full swing, then that will be feeding the metro also, upcoming metro in Pune city. The current pain points of faced by the citizens regarding last mile connectivity were this project has a potential to address those, mitigate those pain points. And this will also be an initiative promoting the green and sustainable transport in the city. The street lights project has been implemented in PPP mode in Pune, along with Tata projects, and significant reduction in the carbon footprint has been achieved thereby. More than 93,000 HPSV and HPMV T5 and floodlights have been replaced by smart and efficient, energy efficient LED lights, which have the standardized hardware interfaces for smart dimming capabilities. And there is no additional financial burden on the smart city or the residents of Pune city, since it's a project on PPP mode. There has been saving of to the extent of 58% in energy, and reduction of carbon footprint by 5% in the last 3 to 4 years. During the first year of its implementation itself, 1.73 crores of kilowatt hour energy was saved, which was amounting to 10.4 crores of rupees. So by this, by way of this street light project, the advantages were that it was environment friendly. No cost was additional cost was inflicted on the city. At the same time, there was increase in the safety, especially the nighttime safety for the pedestrians and inhabitants, and thereby going towards reduction in the crime rate. A Zero-based initiative is being implemented in our area-based development area, and first year of its execution was is already completed. It aims at 100% in situ disposal or processing of the organic waste. It was implemented in the own ward area, and thereby we could eliminate the contamination of recyclables by organic waste. Thereby, the intention is to maximize the recycling of plastics by way of efficient segregation in situ, thereby reducing the quantities of waste going to landfilling, avoiding the resultant greenhouse gas emissions, and also reduce the or prevent groundwater pollution and public hazards by way of wastes. Another municipal solid waste management project is being taken up jointly with Pune Municipal Corporation, and the area-based ABB area will be handled by Pune Smart City, and the rest of the city will be funded by Pune Municipal Corporation. And the project aims at real-time and online integrated municipal solid waste management. Objective is to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the waste management machinery which is operating at present in the city. There is use of smart solutions like use of sensors, IoT devices, RFID tags to identify and weigh the waste carrying vehicles. Smart watches will be provided to the sanitation workers, thereby increasing the accountability of all the stakeholders and increasing the efficiency in the system. Moreover, this will also be linked with the grievance redressal apps or the already functioning apps in the city, so that again the grievances will be redressed timely and customer complaints will be handled efficiently. Urban forest, smart urban forest is another concept which is the planned for the Pune Smart City, and creation of green pockets in the city by way of creating plantations or greeneries, so that it's a sort of a green refuge is being made available for the citizens. Riverfront development project is a major project which for which Pune Municipal Corporation has gone ahead with creation of an SPV, and funds have also been received from the Government of India. Pune Smart City also has part of this project in its smart city plans, so we will be collaborating with the corporation. It aims at providing green and recreational spaces along the river stretches, which Pune city has more than 40 kilometers of river stretch, and the sides of this and the waterfronts will be created. They will be converted in for center for social, cultural, and recreational activities. At the same time, besides leisure and recreation, it will also help in treating the floodplain of the river as urban land for any land use. At the same time, the biophysical aspects like habitat for aquatic and floodplain diversity, and giving the room for floodwater discharge, and creating maintaining the water bodies and ecosystem is also will be maintained by way of this project. Another climate-centric initiative of the city includes the solar rooftops. The pilot of this was implemented in Pune University area, wherein it was objective was to create almost to meet 10% of the energy demand of Pune University campus by way of these solar rooftops. The city as such has an ambitious plan target to supply energy from renewable resources to the extent of 15 to 20%, and thereby it is envisioned to become a first 1 gigawatt city in the country through renewable energy, and the corporation is moving in that direction. Community farming project was implemented by Smart City as a placemaking initiative, wherein tree plantations of various crop plants were made. Water storage tanks and allied facilities were also created there. Beds were there for flowers and for the community to grow their own vegetables or plants, fruit plants. And the beds were provided for the community or for the neighborhood. At the same time, in the same placemaking initiative, we had installed solar panels, and during the night time, LED bollards and LED lighters were also provided this site, which has become very popular and being widely used by the citizens in the neighborhood area. Facilities like security cabin, vegetable shop for vendors for who are going organic vegetables is also provided at that site. Recently, we have collaborated with two non-government agencies like IGBC under the Confederation of Indian Industries. An MoU has been signed with them for promoting green building initiatives in the city and sustainable development. We will be collaborating for feasibility studies, skill development, awareness and outreach programs for promoting green buildings in the city. Likewise, we have collaborated with Pune Knowledge Cluster for the Adopt a Sapling program, wherein the tree plantations which Smart City had taken up were involved with the citizens in the ABB area for the taking care of the sapling, so that the live percentage of trees is maintained and the saplings grow into trees. Otherwise, with the help of PKC, we also plan to create a pool of the experts in various fields and use their scientific knowledge and their skills for giving solutions to the requirements of the city. I think this will be my last slide. Thank you.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you so much for such a wonderful diversity of activities. It's exciting to see, and I think also just the points you made, that the citizens benefit from this, the local businesses benefit also from the switch to clean and green. It's a very exciting endeavor, and hats off, congratulations to you and the whole team engaged in the smart city activities in Pune. We have received so many questions. I want to thank you all. We will not be able to answer all of them immediately, but we will try and answer them also through the course of the UrbanShift project. So please monitor that, and we'll make sure to try and answer the questions as we can. I will just zoom in on a couple of the main questions. I think maybe Mr. Kumar, if you could answer this question. There came in a couple of questions on water management. And so the question that I wanted to ask you specifically is, there are other platforms where data is being collected, for example, waste management data through the Swachh Bharat initiative and water management data by the Central Groundwater Board. How does this data get integrated into the CSCAF?
Well, that's what I was mentioning when I was talking about triangulation and looking at data from multiple sources. So we should not be mistaken to think that Swachh data is different from the ClimateSmart Cities data. They're all the same. even though they're coming from different sources, we validate against each other. And if we find discrepancies, we go back to the cities and ask them whether, what has made that difference come in and out. So the data sources, each of these data sources are being looked at when the CSCAF is prepared. Groundwater board data also is looked at. The CPCB, the Central Pollution Control Board data, is looked at. And the SWOT survection is a very important input into the ClimateSmart Cities Assessment Framework. So all those data points are integrated. We don't work in silos. We are integrating it at the back end, and then only the results are made.
Fantastic. I think the robustness of data is really an important piece. How do you then deal with the lack of data, where we have problems where data is just basically not being collected? Are you zooming in that this will be collected in the future?
There are two ways which we deploy in such scenarios. One, is to look at best proxies, because it's one thing to look at how to institutionalize a way of looking at creating that data. But till that time, you need to look at best proxies for such indicators. And the second thing is we look at multiple different sources and see if there is anything worthwhile which can create a ground for comparison among cities coming from other sources. We then probably look at engaging with that agency and engaging with that data to make it possible. So that has been a challenge. As I said, data can never be perfect in giving you the picture that you want to see. Although it's really exciting and to see that you can collect data and you can create indices and look at what how climate is shaping up. It's not so easy because these are complex issues, and it's very difficult to find the. Sometimes sometimes there are very important things you can't find in data, and sometimes you can find in data things which are not very important.
Absolutely.
There is that balance you have to create, and you have to keep working, and there is no solution to this.
Absolutely. I think it's an important piece to understand what is doable and what is feasible, also with the financial parameters one has. I think, Ms. Vaishali, there was an interesting question that maybe would work for you. How does the CSCAF relate to the Indian Institute of Science with all the cities covered in the future? How much of the climate impact will you account for through this whole program, looking not only at cities, but also rural areas? That's a difficult question, but maybe in brief, if you can.
Yeah, that's a very, very difficult question. I hope the Indian Institute of Science is part of the 75, member strong alliance. If not, I would request them to please join. If you really ask me, projecting at country level is still not the game. Yeah, there are various systems and projections have been done. However, we haven't reached there. We are still a long way to go. We are only assessing 128 cities, and this time round, and the next time round, I hope there are more. And by 2025, 500 would be really, really assessed on this particular system. So I cannot really answer that question if you.
Fair enough. That's something to be investigated in the future.
Absolutely.
There are a couple of questions. We'll try and answer. We'll reach out to all of our speakers to also get answers for more questions. And I do apologize. We were asked to end on time. So an hour is definitely not enough for such an interesting conversation. But I wish to thank all of you as our speakers. Thank you so much for taking the time, for being available, and for your wonderful presentations. I think this is such an exciting endeavor, and we really hope and will learn much more from the Indian case. And as ICLAI, together with the global partners of the UrbanShift program, will share your experiences, of course, also with the other countries, and hopefully will draw attention from others where there would be a wonderful exchange of opportunities as well. We will have a next webinar, so I would just like to flag that already for your attention. Hold the date. Our next UrbanShift webinar will take place on the 9th of December, and it will focus on the other part of the world. How does Brazil and Argentina work on decision-making in cities through sustainability indicators? So very similar topic, and that will be led by our colleagues from WRI. The UrbanShift Forum, which was mentioned earlier, we are now designing that, and we're hoping to fix the date as soon as possible, but that would happen towards the end of next year. And COVID willing, we will be hopefully meeting in person, and it would be wonderful to indeed meet people in person. So fingers crossed on that one. I do hope you've had a wonderful yeah, interesting conversation today. The questions, we will definitely find a way to answer all of those. And thank you so much for your wonderful questions. And if you're interested, please sign up to our newsletter. We will share global news in the newsletter, and track us through social media. This is a project that is definitely worthwhile watching. From the UrbanShift perspective, we want to learn from all the countries and scale up sustainable urban development and climate action. So from our side, the partnership, WRI, C40, ICLEI, UNDP, the World Bank, and the ADB active in India, we look forward to working with all of you and wishing you much joy and success in your work. Have a wonderful day.